Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of the Sporadically Speaking podcast. Thank you once again for joining me. Today is Sunday, the 10th of June, and this is a very special day, for me anyway, maybe not for you. Today's a bit of a milestone day because it's officially been one whole year since I wrapped up the city life in Bristol and relocated back to my homeland of Weymouth. So that's utterly insane how fast that year has gone. A lot has happened in that time. Many of my perspectives have kind of been readjusted. It's weird because when I moved away, it was for a few reasons, primarily work related. There wasn't much in the way of video media work in Dorset 8 years ago, or more than 8 years ago. A fan of Dorset or what it had to offer. I had some great friends around here and all that, but in terms of work and just being satisfied in life, it just wasn't doing it for me. So it felt like a bit of a dead end where people just go to retire and die, or where young people just have kids early and then live in a council house on benefits. And I didn't feel connected to the community at all, so I was desperate to get out, and that's what I did. Obviously, I was a bit younger and more immature back then, so my view on what Dorset was wasn't necessarily factually accurate. But since moving back, I've just kind of been seeing the area, particularly Weymouth, where I currently live, in a totally different light. I'm appreciating more what was there when I was growing up that I just didn't really notice, I suppose, and just the little things like, of course, being near the sea again, that completely chills you out, and it certainly chilled me out. Right now, even as I'm recording this, I'm looking out my window, and I can see the ocean. And, that's the type of thing, it's a view that I see every day, and you think it would lose its novelty over time, but so far it's not showing any signs of doing that. Weymouth, Dorset, etc., I'm now kind of seeing it for what it really is. And in part, that's kind of just an incredibly diverse area of, countryside and locations. And there's definitely a struggle that many people are going through down here, because obviously it's a seaside town, and instantly that presents issues of like limited jobs and stuff like that, seasonal work and all that stuff. Also, in terms of education, the local college's funding can be affected because it has less land mass around it than more inland colleges. So the government says, well, you can't get as many people coming to your college, so we're not going to give you as much money, which I only learnt recently, and it kind of, obviously it sort of makes sense, but also is really shit. So it is a bit of an uphill battle for anyone who's born here. And that's what I felt it was like for me all those years ago. But since moving back, I've really started to appreciate the more positive things about the community. And realise that I was probably quite wrong about it being a dead-end area and all that stuff. So I'm not going to ramble on too much about it, but I wanted to say I'm glad I moved back. It's been a year. it's like moving to a place that I've never lived before, because I have this whole new perspective that I didn't have. And I'm not only enjoying all those good things that I see that it does have to offer that I didn't see before, but I'm actually kind of feeling obligated to get involved in ways to improve the community, and just kind of improve the way people view the town. So obviously I can only do so much, so I've just kind of been trying to, through my own way, make that happen. And that's, for example, through things like my video work, and even just the conversations I have with people. I'm continuously trying to shine a light on what's good about the area and try and push for a shift in attitude of those people that kind of just call the area a shithole, and they're really negative about it. So yeah, I'd like to try and help change that in some way, in my own little way. The town really kind of needs to play to its strengths, and there's a lot of people who just moan on Facebook about how it's all the council's fault, etc. Well, the residents outnumber the council, and there's plenty we can do together ourselves to make this a better place to live our lives. Yeah, and I'm planning to do more podcasts on this topic because I think it's quite important, and so I'll save a lot of discussions for that. But as I say, I just wanted to touch on it now because I've been back for a year. Really glad I moved back, and now, proud to be part of the community despite the issues that the local area might have. So 1 year back in Weymouth, lovely. This episode, just quickly before I get to the guest, the response to the last episode with Emma was wicked. Thanks everybody for listening and all the feedback. If you haven't heard it yet, please do give it a listen. It was good fun. And since that podcast went online, her new music has now officially been released, and that's on all good music platforms from what I understand, so also go and check that out. There's some links to Emma's pages and stuff in the previous episode's description on YouTube. So this episode's guest is an old friend of mine. It's Sas Dite, and Sas is an artist who was part of a group of people from my past who I worked on a few little projects with many years ago. And I invited her on because she has an exhibition coming up soon, and I thought it would be a nice way for her to promote that, but also just talk about all of her creative endeavours and past projects, balancing her creativity with being a mum. And we get into all kinds of weird, lovely stuff, which I enjoyed talking about. We talk about the power of plants and CBD oil, which... when we were talking about it all, I could feel it was all going off on a bit of a tangent, but, listening back, I think it was brilliant. And it's just kind of fun to get deep into those areas, which you don't, or at least I don't ever really have long conversations with people about. Really loved chatting with her. Sas is a very kind of, she's very free-spirited and slightly quirky in a way that perhaps not enough people are. She gives off a very peaceful vibe as well, which I quite like. It was our first time catching up in a long while, so it was really good to sit down and have this, as I say, weird and wonderful conversation. That's that. I'll leave it at that, and I hope you enjoy it. So, Sas.
Hi.
How's it going?
All right, thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's
Thanks.
been 10 years.
It's absolutely mental, isn't it? I don't know where the time's gone, but thanks for coming to my lovely flat today to do this podcast. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about you and what you do and whatever else crops up in conversations. So let's see where it takes us. And we're going to start in the same way that I always start with everybody, which is for people who don't know who you are, why don't you just give a little kind of summary of yourself, a bit about your background and what it is you do that gives a nice little rounded picture for people, who may not know you.
Hi, my name's Sas. I'm an artist, mixed media artist, which means I use different materials and different ways of expressing creativity. At the moment, painting is my thing, but I have a fashion background, so lots of textiles and making clothes and styling photo shoots. I've also done makeup artistry and scenery and lots of different things, really.
Yeah, so what's your main focus right now?
So mixed media art, so I'm
Yeah.
producing a range of Frida Kahlo paintings
Yeah.
from a mix of materials.
Lovely. So why don't we talk about the first time we met? Now, this was a very long time ago. We've both got some mutual friends. And
We
take people through the story of the first time we met. I mean, it was we met through mutual friends, and we both kind of had different responsibilities on this day. But
Yeah.
the first thing we worked together on.
So it was a video shoot for our friends called Moontown, who were a pop duo who were making music, and they needed a video shoot making. So my role was to produce the costumes and the accessories and to style the scenery, which was meant to be a party. So there was a club scene.
Wait, you're jumping ahead. You're
Ah.
forgetting the other photo shoot we did, because that's the music video.
Yeah, that's when we met, I think.
No, we met before then. We
Oh,
definitely met before then.
crikey. My
We
memory.
met the fashion shoot with Emma and Natalie. Sorry to cut you
Oh,
off. I
of
was like,
course.
that's not where we met. We met here.
Of course, I
Yeah.
asked you to film, and I think
Yeah.
Ryan took some photos.
That's it.
So it was, a photo shoot in the Dorchester car park. I think we were going to use the skate park, but it was raining, so
Yeah.
we used the car park.
That's it.
And it was for a promo for a company called Spun Turtle.
Yeah.
So it was our friends, Nat and Charlie, who were DJing,
hmm
and they had some clothes from a company called Spun Turtle, a drum and bass record label. And they wanted some promotional photos.
The things I remember about that day is Nat looked like someone from The Incredibles, because she had the red top and red tights with
Yeah.
black boots and black.
She looked
like-
very superhero.
Yeah. And then also because you brought lots of little props with you, and you had like red and blue Sega Mega Drive controllers, which were just
That's right,
strewn
yeah.
around on the floor, and I was like, what's going on here?
We
Like,
had records and all sorts of things.
so what was it? I know that was so long ago, but of that shoot on that day, those things like Sega controllers, is that you just kind of throwing together whatever you can, or were you really thinking about something like that?
I think I was winging it.
Yeah.
I was definitely winging it. I just filled up a suitcase with whatever props I could find, and
Yeah.
it all just sort of worked, really.
There was like feathers and weird hats and glasses and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's me.
It was good. But then, so that was the first time we met. Sorry, as I said, to cut you off earlier, but the music video came later. And then we also did, because this is when you were properly into your fashion days, which actually, but let's just go back a little bit. So the fashion stuff, which is what you were doing a lot of before,
Yeah.
how did you kind of get started in that area? What drew you towards it? And, why did you take that route?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to make clothes for my Sylvalians and my dolls. That's where it all started.
As we all did.
I just used to like making my own clothes. I tended not to do what everyone else was doing. I'd like to do my own thing and customise things. I preferred art over any other subject at school,
Mhm.
and textiles. I did really well in art and textiles at school, and I carried that through by going to college and then on to university. And when I graduated, I just started doing my own thing, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, and we spoke about this briefly a minute ago before we started recording. So back then, there was a very small group of people from the area that had like these unique skills and unique talents and area of kind of expertise. And so yourself, Ryan, the Joyces, Moontown, me, and a few other people as well. We each had a certain skill that would then come together perfectly, so we could each have a certain role in all these things we did together. And yours being the fashion thing, I know sort of, back then you were kind of the main independent person in the area that was doing it yourself. I'm sure there was others around, and I don't know if there was anyone else around that you were really, that you worked with, but as far as I was concerned, it was you that was kind of the main focus back then.
I mean, I worked with different photographers. I did a lot of work with Graham.
Yeah, Graham. I remember Graham.
Did quite a few shoots with him, and there was lots of willing models who were willing to sort of dress up and let me make clothes for them. And I did some work with some local hair salons.
Yeah.
And then specialised in makeup for a year or two.
Yeah.
Worked at a photography studio doing makeovers, so that was quite nice.
Yeah.
But no, apart from those, I think you're right, I was the only one around doing that. It took me sort of 5 years to find you guys, but we all just sort of collaborated and made some wonderful work.
And I think after that first photo shoot, and I said to you, if you're doing any more, just let me know and I will film it, because I was just trying to make sure I would shoot anything I possibly could back then, which is how we ended up doing another little thing, which to this day I'm still kind of quite proud of. It was one of the sort of, my skills have advanced a lot since then, but I was really pleased with it at the time. Yeah. And I look back on it fondly, and we did that the Two Roses shoot.
Torn Between Two Roses.
Torn Between Two Roses.
I can't find that anywhere online. I'd love to see that again.
I've got the video. I'll dig it out for you.
Oh, thank you.
And so that was, Graham was involved with that. That was like, you had a location photo shoot with some stuff, and that was with Amy as well, I think.
Amy and Sam, Zoe, Amber, and Ben. Yeah,
that's it. And that, as I say, I look back on that really fondly, and that was a really fun day. And we got kind of 2 videos out. We did like an artistic one that didn't show that it was a photo shoot. It was more of a story thing. And then we did a little behind the scenes video as well.
Yeah.
But can you remember much about that day and the ideas that went behind it, and what you were sort of, kind of looking to achieve back then?
I was romanticising. I was well into my flowers at the time, and I just went mad with the flowers, I think. And I made a collection. And that collection went up to London, and a lot of it sold in a Foxbat boutique in Spitalfields Market, and some of it was used in a fashion show in London as well. Yeah.
I remember the flowers being a big part. We were just like dropping petals and stuff on the models.
So that was me sort of softening up, really, because I'd grown up in a city and studied in a city, and I was quite, I can't think of the word, a bit garish, I suppose. A bit garish. My style was quite garish, and being in the countryside for about 4 or 5 years sort of softened me up a little bit, and I was trying to produce something that was pretty and more feminine.
Yeah, it makes sense. And as I say, I really enjoyed it because I was just trying to be really diverse in the stuff that I was involved with as well. And, going to shoot a video of a floral photo fashion shoot, it wasn't something that would usually crop to the front of my priorities, but I thought it was a great day. I thought the video turned out really well. We used a Moontown track on the video as well, which went really well with
lovely,
it. Lovely, fond memories. But then, so the fashion stuff, that continued for a while. I know, because not long after that was when I relocated, and I think you were still involved with the fashion for a bit. But where did that kind of go after that? And where did that take you? And where did that kind of maybe wind down a little bit before you moved into what you're doing now, which is more painting? But what was the sort of the rest of the story with the fashion side of things?
So I continued to be resourceful. I'd customise things, but I then went into sales, and I specialised in vintage, and I started collecting vintage sportswear rather than using denim and florals, and I opened a shop in Weymouth, so it was called #Vintage, and it was,
that's it, I remember.
So it was a mix of the vintagey floral stuff but nothing cliche. It was got a lot of sportswear and interesting things, so it was rare things, random retro style.
Yeah.
I wanted it to have a bit of street cred, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted it to be wearable vintage because I love vintage, but it's not wearable. It's too frilly and fancy. I wanted more sportswear, really. So that lot sold pretty well. And then I opened an eBay shop, and I had a young child, so I couldn't really keep the store open as such. So I continued with the eBay shop. And then sort of ran out of stock, really. And I just had to get resourceful again.
Yeah.
And all I had really was my pens and paper, my paints. So.
And that's something that, because I can remember the first time I saw some of your painting, and I thought it was pretty damn good. And I'm
Thank
not
you.
like an art connoisseur or anything, but I can still, and there's a lot people say about art, it's so kind of subjective and it depends on things. But your stuff is good to look at, it's not gonna give people a headache to see and that kind of thing.
Gives me a headache.
Yeah. Producing it gives you a headache, yeah. But
I love producing it, but the afterwards it's too much for my eyes.
Yeah.
I have to try and put it in another room.
That's interesting. So you finish something and what? I guess you feel like it's watching you or something like that.
It's just there's so
Because it's mainly faces and.
Yeah.
What's the best way for you to describe your painting?
I suppose it's pop art because it's popular. I tend to, and most of it's imaginary. I don't really do portrait. I couldn't draw what's in front of me if I tried, but I could look at something, go away and imagine it, and then paint it. That's just how my brain works.
Yeah.
So.
And has that always been? You said you liked art at school, but. Yeah, a long way to a short point, I suppose. As I said, the first time I'd seen those pictures, it was kind of like, oh, this is a secret Sas has been keeping. I didn't know that you illustrated or painted or anything, and I thought it was really good. So is that something that's kind of just always been in the background? And you
drawing pictures all my life. That was my favourite thing as a child, my felt pens, and I used to draw on everything. Yeah. I'm still the same.
Yeah.
And one aspect at uni, one module at uni was illustration, and I think that's why I went into fashion mainly, rather than to sew and make outfits. I wanted to draw clothes. And I still love drawing clothes, but in fashion you draw certain elements and you focus on certain elements of the female or male face. You don't necessarily have to do a perfect portrait of a female. You just could do a big eyelash or some fancy lips or the earrings or something. And so that's an area that I didn't really explore at uni. I focused on the styling, which I took as far as I could really without moving to London. So it's just an area that I didn't really explore until now.
And your approach, at least when you started painting or drawing again, in your mind, was that like, were you thinking, okay, this is just kind of just a way for me to channel, some thoughts and stuff that I'm having? Or were you kind of approaching it as a way of, maybe I could turn this into go down a more exhibition route and, perhaps, make this my main focus and, at the end of the day, support yourself from it? How do you approach being creative in that sense? Because it can be difficult to think, how much time can I spend doing this, and what should my priorities be? So for you personally, was you just thinking, I'm just doing this for myself and we'll see where it goes? Or
for me initially it was just an escape route from everyday life. I never ever thought people would want to buy it, not for a minute. So about 4 years ago I went through quite a sad breakup with my son's father, and I'd had nothing. I felt like I had nothing else to do in life but to draw and paint. So I've been at that 4 years now, and it's starting to develop into sellable pictures, and I have sold quite a few, and it's blown me away. I never thought for a minute it would make money.
It's brilliant, and I think that's the perfect approach to have. It kind of sounds a bit like a loaded question. I'm saying, you're trying to make money, but I don't think any of us creative types, that is never the first thing, because I think if that's your priority, you're going to fail straight away, and you're going to have kind of a harsh wake-up call, that because you're going to put stuff out there and maybe no one will be interested, and then what are you going to do? So you have to just kind of maybe let it organically grow and see what happens. I mean, if people are interested in your output, that is, as far as I'm concerned, just a bonus. And yeah, evidently for you, it seems to be going okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch television, so as soon as the kids are in bed, I just start drawing and painting and faffing around, really, and see what comes out of it. I don't ever have a plan in my head. I never plan my work.
Yeah.
I just see how I feel and run with that.
Yeah. That's so when Emma was on the podcast the other week, we were talking a bit about, you know, how do you start being creative? I mean, it's such a, you know, just sitting down and starting can sometimes just produce absolutely nothing, and sometimes you could be hit with a bit of inspiration. So for you, you know, as you say, it's when the kids are in bed and you might sit down and try to focus, but do you often find that, again, sometimes it leads absolutely nowhere? Or do you find you're kind of gushing, there's lots of stuff coming out, and where do you draw your kind of inspiration for your creativity from, if you even know where that comes from? Because again, that's something I think is quite hard to put into words, but...
Sure, I tend to get the house stuff done first, do all the mum stuff, then just sit with it. Sometimes I meditate, sometimes I'll go for a walk or sit in the garden and just sit in silence and wait for a spark. And it's all how I feel, so I'll just get a feeling and then I'll work with that. I've now got a desk just covered in my materials, and then I'll look at the materials and just start drawing and ripping things up
and just kind of seeing what I guess appears from
flows
from the ether. I think, you know, you hear a lot of people talk about this, and you know, I find it funny sometimes you hear, particularly with musicians as well, I find, you know, they'll create a really popular song or something, and then they're told, and it does really well, and then someone else is like, okay, do another one, make another really good song, make another really good whatever, you know. But to try and force that, I guess, creativity is just completely impossible. You do, as you say, just have to sit around and just wait for it to appear. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
It's always you know, Emma says she believes it comes from like a higher power or somewhere else, and that's an interesting take on it. You know, I think it's hard to explain. You know, I don't paint or anything like that, but I have my own endeavors, and I often find sometimes sitting down and trying to, I guess, create, just it comes to absolutely nothing, and it will often surprise me in, you know, random situations, or somebody will say something or I'll see something, and it then produces all these feelings and stuff, which you then have to I guess formulate into whatever your medium is.
I agree with Emma. I believe creativity is like an ocean, and your mind is just a droplet in that ocean. So if you can sit and become the ocean, you catch the big ideas.
Yeah, perfect. That's a lovely way
you have
to put it.
Clear your mind enough to be able to just tap into that source, because it's there all the time.
Yeah.
But our feelings and life can just get in the way, and stress. When you're stressed out, you've got no way of accessing it. So that's why I live a peaceful life, really, so that I can tap into that source and produce tons of work.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it comes. I don't remember painting any of my paintings.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm in another world, I think.
Yeah, that's the best way to kind of try and
describe it. I feel totally free.
Yeah. No, that's good. And it's interesting to hear you talk about that, because so from like an outside perspective, and from my perception of you, at least from when I first met you and knew you, I guess I didn't realise how much of a, and whether this has developed over time, and maybe you've changed, as I say, you know, and you've gone through a breakup, and you know, you've had another kid, but when I first met you, you seemed a bit I don't want to say less of a free spirit. That sounds like really horrible, but just now you seem so kind of free spirited and peaceful, and I guess, kind of at peace with what you enjoy and what you're good at. And it's kind of really nice to see that, because especially with things like social media, yes, you can decide if it's a compliment when I've finished what I'm saying. With things like social media and, you know, the shit people put on social media and stuff, there can be so much rubbish, but I do find the stuff you put online quite a nice break from the norm, from stuff in my feed, and I'll often take time to process it and kind of let it sink in. And whether that's, you know, and it's primarily, you know, your painting and stuff you put online, but I do get that sense from you. And is that something that you think, that attitude and that, I guess, the way you live your life, is that more of a recent thing, or do you feel like because obviously you grew up in a city and they're not necessarily peaceful places. Do you think being in the countryside has kind of adapted you into who you are today and, your outlook, I suppose? And
Well, originally I am from the countryside, but we moved to the city as young kids, so I had no choice in that. But yeah, I think coming back to the countryside has chilled me out a lot.
Yeah.
And I've created a life where I can.
Because you have to actively do that in today with things like TV and, as I say, social media and everything, and phones and the way they are. To suppress the noise is really difficult, and so you have to, I guess, be really selective about how you spend your time, I suppose, because otherwise you might end up just clouding yourself with, as I say, all this noise, and that then doesn't allow you to relax and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I have deleted Facebook 3 or 4 times, but it's really, really useful to share my work on.
That's it.
And I don't have Twitter anymore.
Yeah.
So Facebook is and Instagram are my only ways of really showing what I'm up to, really.
Yeah. And so, and you say you don't watch TV as well, which...
Only if I'm ill.
Yeah. And then it just makes you iller and iller. Because I try, I'd spend a lot of time watching TV, and I do often think it would be quite nice to get rid of it, because it can, I don't know, it can produce a lot of anger or negative, some of the stuff you see on TV, whether it's a terrible TV program or stuff I see on the news. But I've done well, I think, in more recent times to try and, so this year I made like a personal New Year's resolution, and that was to not watch any news on TV at all, which sounds like, but then you're just going to shut yourself off from, the world and all this kind of stuff. But I feel so much better for not seeing like BBC News or Sky News. I still see the news, I see articles online, but not having that TV stuff just pissing me off every day.
It's designed to bring us down.
Yeah.
There's never anything positive.
Yeah.
On the go. Or it's designed to ruin your day.
Yeah.
And I just don't listen to it. I sometimes keep it on just for a laugh.
Yeah.
Just to see what they're trying to tell us now. But no, I think for myself.
Yeah, and that's the way to be. And as I say, I suppose it was a compliment. You do seem like you've got all that in order, because I'm quite, I don't meditate actively all the time, but I've tried, I try to, because a lot of other podcasts I listen to, they're always banging on about it. They're saying how much it helps them, and these are all kinds of people. These are high intellectuals to stoners and all this kind of stuff, and they get so much from that. Kind of just being centered and I guess pushing the unnecessary stuff from their lives, and it's something I'm trying to sort of actively do for myself. And I don't know, I kind of look at you and it feels like you've kind of done that quite well. Do you feel that way about your life, or do you just feel it's kind of...
I feel the inner world will reflect your outer world.
Yeah.
You can't really do much about the outer world necessarily all the time, but you can put the inner world in a good space so that the external stuff doesn't bring you down. You can just stay all right amongst it all.
So children, which we've mentioned briefly, you are a mum, and so how do you, in a literal sense, how do you balance being a mum and being creative? Because creative people are often seen as sometimes maybe as a bit of a loose cannon, and it's hard to be really responsible, and as we're younger we feel kind of like we can do anything and do this and the other, but then as you get older and responsibility comes along, maybe some of that stuff falls by the wayside because you have to focus on other things. But do you feel you found a balance with being a mum?
Sure.
And how do you how do you approach that?
I've been a mum for a long time, so I've been a mum for 16 years now, and it was thanks to having my daughter that I went back to uni and I went back to college. I dropped out to have a baby, and then I went back because of her. And I'd never known any different, really, so I'm just used to the fact that the kids come first. You can get your ideas while you're playing with them and out and about and walking on the beach. Just enjoying that. And then, like I say, when they're in bed, I can get on and do what I like to do. And I've got a second child who's very creative, and we do stuff together. We make things, we paint in the garden.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so he's used to it as well.
Yeah.
They're both used to me just getting the paints out and
Your routine,
whatever.
so it's your routine with the kids it just feeds it directly into it though.
Yeah.
So, that's so good to hear, because you think of having children and you think of it as like that's it, your life stops, and maybe you have to stop having an outlet because all your focus has to be on this. But to be able to find that balance is just, I guess, a beautiful thing, really.
Yeah. I'm not particularly house proud, so if we make a mess, that's fine.
That's the way to be.
Yeah,
I think
that's how we live.
So why don't we talk a little bit about kind of the reason why I asked you to come around and do this, and that's for an upcoming exhibition. And rather than me bang on about it, why don't you tell everyone what it's called and kind of what your aims are and how it all came about?
So, on Friday the 13th of July...
That's a really bad day to do anything, you know that.
No, well, I think it's brilliant because it's the day that Frida Kahlo died, and it's a celebration of her face, really. So, yeah, it's called Frida Colour. So it's literally an explosion of colour, and it's predominantly Frida Kahlo portraits of all different sizes, and predominantly in UV. So it will be a light show and a sound show. So it'll be like a real mix.
An installation, really. Yeah.
It's going to be a huge installation. Yeah. It's going to be walking into another world entirely. It's not your average exhibition with white walls and just the odd painting. It's going to be a complete other world.
See, that's instantly when you say exhibition, that's what you think, as you say, white walls and a bit kind of, I don't know, I feel a bit intimidating. I feel, and people often think, it's a bit boring walking around an art gallery and looking at pictures on the wall. So something that's a bit more, I guess, that just taps into more senses is going to be infinitely more enjoyable, I suppose.
All of your senses will be
stimulated. And so the work that's going into that, is that going to be all of your work? Are you doing, is that painting yours? What about, the sound and all this kind of stuff? Are you curating everything together yourself?
So all the painting and the decor will be mine, but a friend of mine called Chima will be making the music.
Yep.
So he's producing a soundtrack as we speak based on the paintings themselves. So he has a copy of all the paintings and will be making music for those.
Is that under any kind of direction from you, or is he just taking that
He's got complete free reign of what?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'll be doing all the lighting and the decor and the paintings and other aspects to it, which are a surprise.
And what about the recent exhibition you held? That was just basically at your place, wasn't it?
That was in my house. Yeah. I wanted to show the work that I had just sat there. So I used every single room in the house and just put together an event on Facebook on the Monday and showed the work on the Friday, and it was quite a good turnout.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting the response and the feedback that I got. I was really, really pleasantly surprised, and it gave me a bit of encouragement to carry on.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite a... for a start, to invite anyone into your home is sort of a big deal, but to invite people into your home to also look at the art that you've created is really putting yourself out there, kind of on a bit of a, you're really opening yourself up, I suppose, and you've got to be brave to do that. So, were you nervous about that? And is that something that's taken you a while to, build up to? Because was that your first time you'd kind of tried to do a formal exhibition, I guess?
Yeah.
Maybe formal is the wrong word because it's quite informal.
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever done that. Yeah, because this work's been building up for 4 years and it's just sat in my house. I mean, so I've given away lots of pieces.
Yeah.
Some friends have them on the wall. There's some cafes in town in Bridport that have my work around. And I put it up on Facebook pretty much every day. But when you look at an image on Facebook, you can't see the size of it
No.
or the texture of it, and there's lots and lots of layers that go into these pictures. So I thought it'd be nice for people to see the real thing.
Yeah.
And it gave me a chance to play with lighting and see the different effects the lighting could have on the paintings. So lots of my work was around the house, but in the kitchen particularly was all of the UV work, the Frida Kahlo work, and I used about 6 or 7 different, a mix of black bulbs and different colour changing light bulbs and things. And at night time, it was completely different to the daytime, and it was a bit of a show. And it,
in a good way, or do you just surprising to you then?
Yeah, I didn't expect it to work out that well.
Yeah.
So that the exhibition on July the 13th will be a bigger version of that, basically.
It's kind of spurred you on, I suppose.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it was just a trial run, really.
Yeah.
And I advertised it as a pre-exhibition.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what it was,
Yeah.
pre-exhibition. So.
Yeah. Well, good. No, I'm glad it sort of went well. As I say, I think it's quite brave to put yourself out there in that way. But that's, I suppose, what you've just got to do sometimes. You have to let go and kind of let it become, other people. There's this thing you often hear about. So, and again, this can be with music or with painting or with anything that you create. Once you put it out there, it almost stops becoming yours.
It's none of your business what people think of it.
That's it.
But when you get nice compliments, it's so rewarding.
Yeah. And then when you get criticism, it's just soul crushing and destroying, and you have to try
Not necessarily.
I'm not saying people are going up to you and saying your art is shit, but it's
not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
I realise that.
Yeah.
It's not my cup of tea.
But this is something I've spoken to people about recently, and certainly with age, and I've found it far easier to take criticism and to take, I suppose, negative feedback. I mean, you generally don't get negative feedback because people just,
it's all
they won't say it. Yeah,
it's all feedback.
Yeah. And so, whereas in the past, I might have felt like, oh, what do you know? Why are you saying that? And I don't care what you think. Now, and it might really get to you. But now I'm just kind of like, yep, cool, that's fine. If you think that, it's not for you. There's a million other things out there that you can go and enjoy.
Sure.
And you have to just, I suppose, be at ease with and be prepared to get all kinds of responses to anything you put out there. Because a lot of it, creative stuff is often is entirely personal, and I've worked in jobs where you do creative things, but they're to very detailed client briefs and stuff, and you feel far less attached to those stuff. But when you're putting your own thing out there, it just feels like you're putting your heart on your sleeve, and so for then someone not like it can feel like a personal insult, when actually it's not an insult, as you say. It's not their cup of tea, and it doesn't really mean anything. And so, do you think?
It's hard to part with some pieces. There are a few pieces people have said, I really like that, how much do you want for it? And I have to say, I'm sorry, it's not for sale, because I didn't realise until that point just how much it meant to me. But then there's other pieces I don't really, I'm not attached to at all, and I'll happily part with them.
Yeah. And why do you think that is? I mean, what is it about those things that, can you describe that kind of feeling that's, I guess, why is one thing more important than the other? What is it?
I suppose with some pieces it was a turning point in my life, and the time that I was making that piece of art, I was going through something personally. Yeah. And they're sort of landmarks to my journey, I suppose.
Yeah. And so do you feel, just going back a little bit to what I was just saying, from when you were doing fashion things in the early days to what you do now, do you find the way you take on people's responses different from how you've grown in the past 10, 15 years or whatever?
Absolutely.
And so how is it different for you? What was it like for you back then to doing stuff to what it's like now?
I guess I was still young then, and I had a bit more of a chip on my shoulder. I was a little bit more angry, but I don't know, I just suppose I've matured a little bit now. We
like to all think we've matured a little bit.
Not quite there, but...
No, it's a weird way. I think it's this, especially once you hit like 30, and it's this kind of this weird turning point. You sort of realize you're older, and all your opinions, the way you perceive things has changed drastically, and it catches you off guard. Sometimes I often find, and as I say, this is through stuff I've done myself, or even in old jobs I've had. I think about the way I reacted to stuff years ago and the way I react now, and it's like a universe apart into how I do things. And I guess it is just something that comes with maturity and based on experience and all that kind of stuff that allows you to be more sensible about your reactions. And
you've got to take care of yourself first, and if self-care isn't top of the agenda, then things do get to me, and I have got a temper, and I will tell people to F off if I feel like it, but I try not to be like that. However, if I'm not taking care of myself, I can get into that space where,
Yeah, well, like I said about, you do have to actively suppress noise and stuff like that. It's the same with your personality. You have to work at it, and some people are better at it than others are, and you'll see things that will make you angry, and it's just I know this is a weird kind of tangent to go on, but it's so true, and it's something I found as I've got older, and realizing if you're happy with yourself, things just affect you less and bother you less, I suppose. So it's a good way to be getting yourself in order, I suppose, before you worry about other stuff.
I'll paint on it.
So there's a couple of other things I wanted to talk about, because as I said, I thought you're quite interesting, and you seem to have your self in order and all this kind of stuff. And it's weird because I wrote a note down before you came here, and then I went on Instagram, and then you posted a picture of some CBD oil. And this is something that, again, I hear a lot about on podcasts, and I keep hearing about the benefits of this. And then I wrote this down because I'd seen you post about it, recently and stuff like that. So I thought, we'll have a chat about that, because I think you're probably one of the few people I know who do use CBD oil in their lives. And I just wanted to talk about, how did you discover it, and what does it do for you? Because you hear about all these brilliant things and ways it can improve your life, and it's got a million different, uses. So what is it that you get from it, really, and why would you recommend it to people?
I've noticed a dramatic decrease in anxiety and destructive thoughts. I'm my own worst enemy, and I can talk myself out of all sorts of things through lack of confidence and anxiety-based thoughts. And the CBD oil has dramatically changed that for me. It's not about what's happening; it's about what's not happening in your body, and it's helped me to just feel more peaceful. Yeah.
It's interesting to me because obviously, you say the word anxiety there, and that's a big thing. People talk a lot more about it these days, about anxiety and about depression and stuff, and people are on all kinds of medication and all this thing, and it works for some people and it doesn't work for others, and then there's all these kind of side effects. But with CBD oil, it seems like this is supposed to be a natural alternative to this kind of suffering, if you like. That's maybe the wrong word, that lots of people are now discovering helps them, in ways that other medication just never would. And that can be anything from just people with chronic pain to, as you say, stress and anxiety, to sickness and stuff like that. So what is it you think why are people's attitudes changing towards this kind of stuff? And why is it only now that this is seen like a normal thing? Because you think of CBD oil and you think of, cannabis, stoners, and getting high and stuff like that. But that's not what it is.
No.
And so
everybody has an e-cannabinoid system in the body that's already present. So my advice to anybody is to research your own e-cannabinoid system in the body. And it's THC that gives you a high, whereas CBD works on a different system in the body and triggers your own healing in your own body. So
No, I'd hear about it all the time, and as I say, I haven't got any of my own, but which is why I just wanted you to kind of give your thoughts about it. And is it something you use daily? Is it just a thing that
I've only started buying it recently because I wanted to find a really good source, because I found the stuff that I was buying in Holland and Barrett wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And it was expensive and just not very good.
Yeah.
So I've done a bit of research and found a really good organic source.
Where'd you get that from now?
So it's from a company called Daba Organics. She's online, and it's 5.5%, and you only need 1 drop a day, and it's just creates mental clarity for me to just go on with my day without feeling anxious, or what do people think of me, and is my work a pile of crap? Am I going to die today? Just all those stupid thoughts just aren't present.
Yeah, and that's, everybody thinks like that. It's trying to not let that stuff completely take control, I suppose, because you can sit there and start having those thoughts. You think about them for longer than 20 seconds and you might start having a panic attack. So if you can find a way to...
It would prevent a panic attack, I believe. It would stop the thoughts leading up to that anyway. So, I mean, I don't think it's a quick fix for all your problems.
No, and it may not be for everybody.
With good diet and lots of sleep and other alternative practices. So
cool. Is there anything else that you think? Is there anything else in your life that you, I guess, that you think helps towards all that kind of, as I say, balancing out and managing any stress and anxiety and all that stuff?
So salt baths, magnesium salt baths, essential oils, candles, all of that. Little fires in the garden. Try and avoid alcohol as much as possible. I do get sucked in and go for the odd drink, but it doesn't do me any favours whatsoever. Just really healthy diet, really. I follow a vegan diet, plant-based diet, which has reversed lots of ailments.
How long have you been a vegan for?
So about 2 years now, on and off for quite a few years.
Because, again, this is another thing for me, because in recent years, me trying to adjust my life slightly, and the stigma around veganism and stuff is,
Oh, well, it's quite trendy, isn't it, to be vegan?
It is, but then it also is kind of, it's something that people love to take the piss out of. Whereas I deeply follow a lot of hardcore nutritionists and all this stuff, and there is so much to be said.
It's quite extreme
for being a vegan, and then you get people that, as you say, they're vegan because it's trendy and stuff like that. But for me, if I had to become a vegan today, I would struggle. I would love to, but again, it's hard, and it's about working towards that. So did you just go cold turkey and just switch straight away, or have you had to adapt slowly? And
I changed my diet rapidly, and I created lots of health problems for myself. So I had to get to the bottom of that, and you do have to get to know your own body, and you do have to build up your vitamin B stores before you cut out meat. I mean, I've never been a meat eater, so that wasn't really a problem. It was cutting out the dairy and the eggs and things, and now when I think about them, I actually feel quite sick because my body's reversed it, become intolerant to those things. So I don't try not to bang on about veganism, but I do believe in the power of plants. They're there to support us, and they give me everything that I need diet wise. Do have to supplement in some areas. So you got to
it's just being sensible about it, I suppose.
To change your diet rapidly is quite dangerous for some people, because all the toxins will try and leave your body, and you can end up quite ill. So to prevent that, you sort of have to research your vitamins and minerals, what you need to stay alive.
It's funny because I do eat meat, but I'm not a big meat eater, and I never have been. I rarely eat meat at home. Generally, the only time I'll eat meat is if it's out at a restaurant or something like that. And in recent years, I've been trying to adjust my diet to be. It's way more towards vegetarian. It's more vegetarian than it is, meat and stuff like that.
Great.
But then dairy is still a part of my life, but things like milk, I'm trying to cut milk out and stick to like almond milk and stuff like that. Do you? And when it comes to things like that, is there a preference you have? Because you hear people say how bad things like soy are, and then you get people that say, yeah, you should only have almond milk or coconut milk, and soy is really bad for you, and it's particularly bad for men as well. They say it like cuts all the testosterone out your body, and
it's highly acidic.
Yeah.
So I try and whiz up my own if I can. I try not to buy too many cartons of plant-based milk because of the amount of packaging.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can make milk out of anything as long as you've got a good blender and a bit of time.
Yeah. That's good. So you do that yourself at home as well?
I try to, yeah.
As much as possible, yeah.
Otherwise, it's just black coffee and herbal tea.
Yeah.
But if I want to have cereal, I just whiz up my own.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's wicked. Yeah, I'm still on the... I don't make my own milk at home yet.
But being a mother and researching the dairy industry, you know, I don't really want to go into all that. But if you research the dairy industry, it's so cruel, and I just can't stomach that kind of cruelty.
Yeah. See, I'm of that same opinion. That stuff really does really get to me. I think, you know, in an ideal world, we'd all have, you know, farmland. We could all hunt our own food, and we could all, you know, farm, have our own milk. We'd each have one cow that we can get milk from, or something like that. You know, but besides the point of how good that milk is for you, you know, being irrelevant, I just mean it's the production side of that is the bigger issue, I think, and you know, the shit you see that goes down in these mass-produced, you know, dairy farms and stuff. It is just, it does make you stop and think. And I personally, for me, you know, I don't eat any, excuse me, I don't eat any pig, and that is pure. And I haven't for about over 7 years now. And whenever I tell people that, they're like, "Oh, you know, what's wrong with you? You know, you Jewish or something like that?" And I'm just like, no, it's nothing to do with that. For me, it genuinely was. I was watching a TV program one day, and they did this thing where they had pigs do it was like a maze or like an intelligence test.
Right.
And then they had 3-year-olds do it as well, 3-year-old humans. And the pigs, like, you know, they beat them every single time. They did some of the 3-year-olds never even finished and stuff like that. And when I saw that, I was just like, you know, I know I've always been against animal cruelty and stuff like this, but then still hypocritically eaten meat and all this stuff. But when I saw that was like a turning point for me. It was like, okay, so this thing is more sentient and more intelligent than this 3-year-old human being. I'm not going to be eating 3-year-old humans, so by that standard, I can't eat pigs anymore.
What makes us human?
It's a good question.
We feel joy and we feel pain, and animals feel joy and they feel pain, and they feel sad when their calves get ripped away from them, and then they get milked and the calves get killed. It's horrendous.
I don't eat lamb as well. You know, this is what I mean. I'm kind of slowly trying to I have been readjusting my diet and my approach for various reasons, and again, at the end of the day, those reasons are nothing to do with anybody else. It's up to me. It's just a personal thing, and I choose not to eat this, and I choose to drink this, and I have my vices. But I think, it'd be great to be vegan. But for me, it's, you know, sometimes I think I'm just not strong enough, and it's difficult, and you have to this thing that you've been maybe doing your whole life, and if that's an eating habit or something, to then suddenly change that is difficult, and it takes up a lot of heart and energy, and you have to just kind of.
It's simpler than you think.
Yeah, no, that's what, you know, and that's what everybody says, and I know it is, and it's purely it's me, you know. I'm not blaming people saying, you know, oh, it's you can't buy it anywhere, or you can't do this, that, and the other. It's just breaking that habit, and through the pressures and stress of life, I pick my battles, you know. And there's parts of my diet I pick, and then I think, oh well, I'm not going to worry myself about my diet today because I've got to worry about work, or I've got to worry about this, that, and the other. So I'm definitely in this weird transitional stage where I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to keep hold of, and what I suppose I'm going to let go of. And that's not just with diet, that's with anything, I suppose. So how did we get onto that? What was he talking about?
CBD.
CBD, veganism, all that lovely stuff.
It's just a really nice compliment. The CBD is complementary to a plant-based, sort of ethical.
I was listening to something the other day, and this guy was talking about plants, and he said he's not a vegan, but he was talking about how he really, really believes plants are alive and all this stuff. And it sounds like a ridiculous thing to say out loud that, plants
I know
are...
what's coming.
Yeah. No.
I know what's coming.
Well, no, but what I was going to say was, and he was saying, if he was, he's not like super like hippie-ish or anything, but he was talking about how, he was just walking through the park and he was stopping and staring at some flowers, and he was like, he feels like these things are aware of him. And I say I was listening to this recently. It was quite a while ago, and that's really kind of stuck with me ever since I heard that. And any time I'm looking at flowers or trees, it always pops back into my head. And then you read more about the makeup of plants and how complex they are, and how insanely, they're insane their kind of ecosystem is. They're alive and they feel like they've got this power to them.
If you look close enough at a tree, you can actually see its etheric field around it.
Yeah.
But I feel plants, they do grow for us.
Yeah. It's a weird thing, isn't it? This is the sort of thing that once again you start to think about for more than 30 seconds and it really blows your mind, and you're just like, holy shit, I'm so insignificant. And these things are just like this all-powerful... I think I remembered reading the biggest living organism on Earth is a plant. It's like some tree or some fungus or something like that, and it's just like...
The mushroom
The
network. The mycelia network.
That's it.
Of this Earth.
That's the one.
And the trees are all connected through their root systems. The plant dimension is highly intelligent, and they'll outlive us, I'm sure. But they are trying to share their wisdom and knowledge with us through things like ayahuasca, that sort of thing.
That's something that, I don't
Mother
know
Earth is asking us to change our ways, because we will fuck this planet up.
You hear about the things people get from ayahuasca and the experiences they have, and it's just like, I don't know. And again, these are highly intellectual people as well that are, experimenting with this and using it, and then coming around and saying, this is important and this is telling us stuff that just... And it's been around, again, for thousands of years. People have been using it and all this stuff, and it's terrifying, the stories I hear people talk about. And it's something I would love to, I guess, experience one day. I don't know if there's any... You have to go to South America, I think, probably to...
Have to be with do it with a trained shaman. There's lots of shamans out there that aren't really shamans. They've just heard that the Westerners are getting excited about it and abusing that, and Western, it doesn't really agree with Western medicine. Part of me won't do it because I don't feel it's for me particularly. I'd rather stick to the local networks. But I feel the plant dimension is an intelligent realm that we just can't tap into it without that help.
There's loads of people listening to this laughing now, making fun of us talking about plants being alive and all this, because that's the perception some people have. They think it's ridiculous.
Like, I'm sure, but I've had it all my life, so it's nothing new to be ridiculed. I'm no stranger to it.
Fuck them. Anyway, that took a bit of a turn, but lovely to talk about plants. There was another thing. I should have brought this up earlier, but I completely forgot because we started talking about CBD. So, you're a mum. You've got a couple of kids. Homeschooling. You tried homeschooling for a while, and this is something that I think in the future, when I have kids, this has always been something at the back of my mind, because I think about my time at school and I hated it. I hated every single second of it, pretty much. I met a few friends at school, but at the end of the day, a lot of the friends I had when I was younger, I knew them outside of school anyway, and I didn't, and they're not necessarily a big part of my life these days. And I wrote it down because you are, I think, the only person I know personally who has experience with it and did try it out. And so just talk to me a bit about that. Why did you opt to do that, and how did it go? And
so I home educated my daughter at age 13. She went to the local high school and got bullied. I found it difficult to tackle the bullying. I couldn't bear to see her go through that So I deregistered her from school, which is not illegal. It's perfectly legal to deregister them.
So were the school doing anything about that? It was, when that was happening, did you go to them and did they,
No, I just informed them that she was leaving.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make the problem worse for her. We homeschooled for about a year, and initially we set up lessons, the same sort of structure as school. But as time went on, we then started unschooling. So we got out of that routine and we did stuff out of the house. And it was quite a healing time for her. I just gave her some time off really to sort of heal those wounds, and she decided that she wanted to go back to school.
Yeah.
So we found another school and she went back, and she's made some really good friends, and she's there 100% because she wants to be, not because I forced her or the school forced her. She chose to do her GCSEs at school. And she's done amazingly well. She's doing one of her last exams this week, and she's made some wonderful friends. Yeah. And she's going on to college, and that really works for her.
Yeah.
I mean, the social side of it was difficult because of her age. There's a massive homeschool community where I live, and they're wonderfully supportive, open-minded, friendly, very proactive people. However, their children were a lot younger.
I was going to say 13 seemed quite late to maybe start doing it. Yeah.
So I think if it's something you're going to consider, it's better to sort of do it from the beginning. But for my son, he has adapted extremely well to primary school. Yeah. And I think I really, really do agree with the primary school way. I think they're really good at helping them, but it depends on the child. It might not suit some children, but for my son, he's very resilient, and he gets the opportunity to socialise, great physical education, he's got loads of mates, and it gives me a routine. I don't think I'm disciplined enough to have that routine day in, day out of,
I think those early
filling
years
his day with home education. I feel school really suits him at the moment. But for my daughter, it wasn't for her, so we went back to
and it's weird because, as I say, I completely base it on my own personal experience, and also my partner's personal experience. She didn't finish school because she was bullied, and she didn't do any GCSEs, and she won't mind me saying that because she went on to do an access course and then got a degree at college, and she's done very well for herself, and school didn't work out for her the way it does for some people. And I think about what I got from school and how unhappy I was and stuff like that, and this is why now, so alongside all my video stuff and all that, I am training to be a teacher, and that's something that it's something that I see both as almost like a fallback career, to sort of take my stuff that I know and teach media and all that stuff. But then also in the back of my mind, I do have, when I have kids and they're growing up, do I want them to go through that experience that I went to? And maybe I can take on the responsibility of their education and all this kind of stuff. But then is that just me sheltering them from something because I had a bad experience? And I'm definitely kind of at war with myself over that notion at the moment about what route we're going to take. I think early years are easier, like primary school. It is a bit different. People most children haven't really learnt how to bully each other yet. They're all very happy, and and you do get the odd anomaly, shall we say. But I think because I think about my experience in the early years, at least what I can remember, they were certainly nicer. But once you get to age 8 onwards, and then when people start becoming early teens, it can get really rough and really difficult. So it was just kind of wanted to probe you a bit more about that. So although you only did it for a year, logistically, how did you set that up? How was that teaching delivered, and was that all you, or did you get people to help you, or?
So we just did textbook studying for a few months, and then we just sort of did hands-on So there was some local home editors that did like history classes, and there was meetups on the beach and things.
See, already that just seems like far more interesting than being in a classroom.
Yeah, and she did pick up some great skills. You know, she can light a fire, and she learned lots of cooking and what goes on in a house, like how to do the washing. Real practical, hands-on skills
Important
that will benefit
stuff.
her for the rest of her life, and financial skills. And she works really, really hard now. She's got a job. She understands how to manage a bank account and real practical things in life. Whereas if you're at school all day, you probably won't have time or the energy to learn those things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? How a lot of time is spent on stuff that I guess I say doesn't matter. I mean, there's, functional skills like maths and English, like I get that, but then just those life skills, which a lot of the time you don't learn until you're faced with them as a grown-up or something, and you just have to do them, and you're like, hang on, nobody's ever told me how to do this. I mean, you may have a parent that might show you or help you, but not everybody has that, and you find yourself, I know I found myself in situations where I'm just like, oh, I didn't know this is how it worked, and you think this is important stuff that perhaps at school you should be taught at a younger age. So
yeah, with home education, it's very community based.
Yeah.
So if you've got a great community around, you can swap and share skills.
Yeah. I think today it's probably easier, again, just with the internet, and you've got lots of internet forums and things like that, where you can just kind of pull off lesson plans and all this kind of stuff. So they're always telling me anyway on my training course. But yes, it's an interesting one, because it seems like, and that's a long way off yet. I haven't got any kids right now that I'm going to be homeschooling, but it's something that I always have in the back of my mind. So it's just nice to hear from somebody who has had experience with that, I guess.
Yeah, tiny bit of experience.
Yeah.
And it was good. And I would have loved to have continued, but my daughter wanted to go back to school.
Yeah.
So I supported that 100%.
That's it. And you think your boy's okay, like you say, he's taken to it, so...
Yeah, he does love school
so
far, and he's a quick learner, and it's great for him to socialise.
Yeah.
I mean, even on the weekends, he says, "Mummy, I miss my friends." So cute.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's kind of like the bulk of all my notes and stuff that I wrote down. But is there anything else you wanted to talk about? I mean, so before we wrap this up, maybe just recap again. So this exhibition that you've got coming up, when is it? Where is it? Where can people find out more about you and all this kind of stuff and everything you do?
So the exhibition on Friday the 13th of July.
Bad day to have it, as I said. That's bad luck, Friday the 13th.
If you say so.
I'm just making fun.
The 13th of July in the chapel in the garden in Bridport, be 7 o'clock onwards. I'm not sure if it's ticketed or just turn up on the door yet, but the flyers and other aspects are being planned as we speak. So the date's set.
Yep.
You can find me on Facebook at Sas Dite Styling. I still use my styling name because I couldn't think of anything else to call my painting. So it's still, I might go back to it one day. You never know. So yeah, the Frida Kahlo paintings will be on show on Friday the 13th at the chapel in the garden in Bridport.
Wicked. Okay, well, yeah, that's great. Thanks for opening up and coming round and having a chat.
You're welcome.
It's
Cheers.
been lovely. I'm sure we'll do this again sometime soon. Best of luck with the exhibition. You're going to have that videoed as well. So I've got somebody to sort that out for you, which I would just say I'll just apologize on this recording again. I was going to help you out with some video, but I double booked myself for that, so I've got somebody to go in my place instead. So if you can't make it to the exhibition, I'm sure you'll get to see some footage of it online afterwards.
But again, it might be a test run, it could become quite a regular thing. I'll see how it goes and
I think
take it on tour.
So it's just good, I think, to push to push that there is stuff happening in Dorset, because you get a lot of people around here that just nothing ever goes on around here.
Well, it's Dorset Arts Week.
It is,
as
yes.
we speak. So there's hundreds of artists opening up their studios.
Yeah,
there's quite a lot of artists in Bridport, and again, they're very brave to open up their doors and their studios to the public.
It's really good to see because, as I say, I moved away because I had to find work and all this stuff. But now, since moving back, I'm really proud to be back in Dorset, and I want to kind of get involved with all this stuff as much as possible. So
welcome back.
Yeah, thanks. So that's kind of it, really. Thanks again for coming around. It's been lovely.
Cheers, Kelsey.
And we'll chat again soon.
Yeah, talk
Thanks.
soon.
All right, bye.